Welcome back to the glacial procession towards the second round of Fire Red's Pokemon League Blind and Deaf. In the last video, we covered the necessary condition, acquisition of 60 Pokemon. This required using guaranteed capture mechanics alongside strategies for ensuring enemies suffered deterministic amounts of damage and status conditions. From our starry-eyed perspectives at the start of this fun project, this seemed like it would be the hard part. With so many species of Pokemon to choose from, along with an extremely overleveled Jolteon, round 2 might be underwhelming. This was not quite the case. You see, levels give diminishing returns once the enemy Pokemon are themselves sufficiently strong. For example, the champion has very tanky Pokemon in their 70s, which even a level 100 Jolteon would not be guaranteed to one-shot with any move it can learn. With poor defensive IVs and bad luck with crits and damage rolls, they might even be able to one-shot us. The enemy Pokemon are also faster now, so we need to be prepared for being outsped by status-inducing moves. This is all to say, we need to try a little bit harder. Still, we need to follow our blind and deaf commandments. On top of handling every possible random game state, we want to try to be as efficient as possible. That means minimizing necessary levels and thereby time in the daycare. We did it! Using unique strategies, mostly thanks to Kakashi-sensei, including a legendary finale of blind and deaf genius. Sorry, the Pokemon League is closed. We have to go and complete a bunch of useless quests on the Sevi Islands before we have the chance to take on round 2. This is the reward we get for catching 60 Pokemon species. With our Jolteon at an incredibly high level right now, we should have no trouble taking out trainers here. For every ground or grass type Pokemon that resists Jolteon, we can use Articuno instead. This means that we should have no trouble at all, but there is a small hitch. If we want to minimize the amount of leveling we need to do, we also need to ensure our Pokemon have the right EV spread. In fact, Jolteon is already almost level 100, so the only way we can get it in sufficiently powerful range to tackle round 2 is through EV training. The to-be-determined Pokemon on our team are but unmolded clay, so we can hold off on EV training them until after we are done being island boys. The issue is that Articuno and Jolteon already have some unplanned smattering of EVs from the original run. If we're going to fight trainers on the Sevi Islands, we're going to pick up even more undesirable EVs. Both Pokemon will definitely be on our final team for round 2. Jolteon is already incredibly high level and should be helpful for Lorelei's team of mostly water types, and Articuno is a legendary flying type Pokemon who will at the very least be helpful with the champion's leading Heracross. This means we'll want both of them to have optimal EV spreads before we pick up island EVs. We determine, for reasons to be discussed later, that both need maxed out attack EVs, which we can earn by slaughtering Paris in Basement 1 of Mount Moon. We'll keep Parasect out of our party for this one. He doesn't need to see this. Jolteon also needs a few more special defense EVs for tanking hits from Pokemon like Alakazam, which we can get from a few Tentacool near Cinnabar. Finally, Articuno needs speed EVs to outspeed Heracross, which, as we know from EV training Paris in Part 1, can be obtained on Route 1. The islands themselves are massively uninteresting, but they do contain an accessibility feature specific to Round 2. Braille, the language of the blind and deaf. Of course, the Braille is presented on a screen that can only be seen by non-blind people and cannot be felt, so it's basically just virtue signaling. The islands also offer a few important items that we'll need for round 2. A silk scarf, several berries, a rare candy or two, and the essence of the sea. Once we're done with this ridiculous quest, 2 things open up: the Pokemon League and some damp cave off to the north. I wonder what lies within. Here's a bit of how the blind and deaf sausage is made. Looking ahead to a major battle, you ask, how can I defeat this fella with the tools I already have? If after a few hours you determine the answer is, I can't, the next question is, what tools do I have access to? We begin the same inverse problem with round 2 of the Pokemon League. What tools are currently at our disposal? Well, we have 24 fully evolved Pokemon and a Master Ball. We also have a boatload of money and access to the Sevi Islands where a lot of powerful items can be found. There are a lot of options, almost too many, the curse of dimensionality. So we can start by looking at the Rivals team and thinking of strong counters to some of his Pokemon. He leads with Heracross, which is a fighting bug, naturally 4 times weak to the bird type. Then there's Tyranitar, a dark rock naturally 4 times weak to the fighting type. We have access to a few fighting types, but none as strong as Machamp. He gets a slot as the anti-Tyranitar guy. So we have 3 good choices for Pokemon for our team. Unfortunately, we still have to deal with his 3 remaining Pokemon, Arcanine, Alakazam, and Exeggutor. Moreover, a team entirely designed around the champion may not succeed in the Elite Four. We look there for our next hope for inspiration. Let's look at the list of Pokemon who might be tricky to cover with the current team. There are a few troublesome ground types who will be bad for Jolteon, Lorelei's Piloswine, and Bruno's pair of Steelacees. Machamp seems like a good solution, but fighting type is only 2 times effective, and these Pokemon have very high defense. Machamp can defeat Tyranitar at a far lower level than it would be able to defeat these Pokemon. We will hold out for a more efficient option. Bruno has 3 pure fighting types. Like with the ground types, we already have a super effective Pokemon in Articuno. However, again, it would have to be leveled higher than necessary for Heracross. We'll hold out again. Agatha's a loser. This leaves Lance, whose higher level team leaves him less easily guaranteed than last time. Kingdra and the level 72 Dragonite are particular problems. Let's just say Lance's whole team is an issue. 4 of the Pokemon in this list are weak to the Water type, which is a special type making it a good choice for the Steelacees. We have access to a few strong Water types, but none as strong as Slowbro, at least in terms of special attack, in which Gyarados is a puny fish weakling. Slowbro is slow, but he makes up for it in tankiness, which we can hope will be useful, so let's add Slowbro to the roster. The fighting types can be handled by powerful Psychic type, which we have in Alakazam who would work, but would need to be significantly leveled and Eevee trained. However, we also have access to Cerulean Cave and a Master Ball. That means Mewtwo is an option. Cool, let's not let that go to waste. With 1 more slot on our team, we pick a Pokemon that can handle Lance. Gengar. The power of Gengar is not instantly clear, but time will tell. Time will tell. Your Pokemon will be at my mercy when they are frozen solid, Lorelei says. She would be right, of course, as it is difficult to account for being blind, deaf, and suffering from hypothermia. Thankfully, several Aspir berries, which instantly cure freeze when they're used as a held item, can be found around the world. I suppose we will be at nobody's mercy. Lorelei opens with Dugong, who is easily knocked out by a single Jolteon Thunderbolt. The AI then switches to Piloswine, a ground type. We picked Slowbro specifically to deal with this fool, so we sent him in. Without significant overleveling, Slowbro is not guaranteed to outspeed Piloswine. With an Aspir Berry, we can afford to take only a single hit. Giving room for a second hit could give an opportunity for us to be frozen. That means we need a guaranteed OHKO. This is a sure thing with maxed out special EVs at level 78. We then have to use it to, sadly, slaughter Slowpokes in the pond west of Vermilion for special EVs. I'm sure he feels sorry. So Lorelei's Piloswine is one-shot by Surf from a level greater than or equal to 78 Slowbro, who survives with, at worst, a flesh wound and the loss of an Aspir Berry. At best, neither. Jolteon can be guaranteed to sweep the rest of Lorelei's team, but only after an X special. This gives room for 1 attack from Lapras, which won't knock us out because we're already level 100 and have 40 special defense EVs. If it would freeze us, that's no trouble thanks to the Aspir Berry. Who's at whose mercy now, Lorelei? Lapras and Cloyster fall quickly to Thunderbolts. As for Jinx, even without our maxed out attack EVs, Shadow Ball is an easy one-shot, and down goes Lorelei. We will grind you down with our superior power, Bruno says. Our Slowbro was chosen in part to handle the Steelacees on his team, and with maxed out special attack EVs, we still need to equip a Sea Incense to guarantee one-shots here. Once again, while we know we can one-shot Steelix, we can't be sure that we will outspeed. That means the possibility of damage, but Slowbro's massive bulk ensures that this damage is non-fatal. But when Bruno sends in his second Steelix, we run into a bit of trouble. In the worst case, Slowbro can't tank 2 back-to-back Grand Slams from Steelix, meaning that we can't just leave him in. We have to try to heal him, or else he will grind us down with his superior power. Here's the first time of many that Gengar comes in handy. Switching to Gengar as if he were a burner Pokemon, we can use up a turn healing Slowbro. One of 3 things can happen. In one case, Slowbro is already at full health, so we just fumble around in the menus. In the other 2 cases, we heal Slowbro, and then Gengar is attacked by Steelix. This may knock out Gengar, and it may not knock out Gengar. In all 3 cases, Slowbro is at full health as desired. To sync up the cases, we can't just send in Slowbro. In the cases where Gengar is still alive, this could give Steelix the chance to attack Slowbro twice. We need Gengar dead. Gengar's utility comes in part from the ability to teach it Explosion at the move tutor at Mount Ember. That means with the stroke of a pen, we can wipe Gengar out of the plane of the living. Even with maximum attack EVs, a crit, and a max damage roll, we can guarantee that Steelix survives this hit, sinking the cases. Gengar is dead, Slowbro has max health, and Steelix is alive. Switching to Slowbro, we can be sure to knock out Steelix with Surf, tanking at most one hit. All that remains are Bruno's 3 Fighting-type Pokemon, and without any leveling, Mewtwo can outspeed and one-shot every one of them with Psychic, so long as he accompanies Slowbro in the mass extermination of Slowpokes from the pond. And that's all for Bruno and his superior power. Now he just wants to fiddle with his Pokedex, a wretched insult from Agatha that cuts deep at our most major achievement despite our blindness and deafness. She won't live this one down. Agatha turns out to be the most pathetic of the members of the Pokemon League. Without even Eevee training Special Attack, every single Pokemon on her team is one-shot by Jolteon's Thunderbolt after a single X-Special. In that one turn, her lead could confuse or put us to sleep, but a Lumberry solves either problem. What right does she have to laugh at our fiddling with a Pokedex? But fiddling time is over. Things are about to get tough. They're virtually indestructible. There's no being clever with them. Lance is about to eat those words, because we're about to get very, very clever with him. The secret lies in his lead, Gyarados. While ostensibly he is indestructible, his move pool has a major hole. You see, he only knows Earthquake, Dragon Dance, Hyper Beam, and Thunder Wave. But what of Gengar? He has the Levitate ability, nullifying Earthquake, and his Ghost type nullifies Hyper Beam. The worst Gyarados can do is buff himself and try to paralyze us. Paralysis is no fun for a blind and deaf run, but if we can handle that, his inability to touch us means we have room for the ultimate setup. We can use any number of X items we want without fear. This allows us to take out Lance's entire team as low as level 60, but we are at a slightly higher level due to the random experience gains we achieve while Eevee training. Before we tackle Lance, Gengar is dead from his suicidal explosion stunt against Bruno. We need to revive Gengar, but importantly, we want to do this using a rare candy rather than a revive or max revive. Rare candy may elevate Gengar to, at most, level 64 where it will learn Mean Look. We do not want Gengar learning any moves at random points in the battle. We can't handle that amount of text box variability. Rare candies also importantly revive us with less than full health. With 176 speed EVs, we are guaranteed to outspeed Gyarados and can cast the Rest spell, putting us to sleep and restoring our health. It would fail if we had maximum health. Once we're asleep, even Thunder Wave has no impact on us. We can then set up 6x speeds, 6x specials, 6x attacks, and 2x accuracies. As item uses do not count towards turns for sleep, we can remain immune to every single one of Gyarados' attacks during this setup. When we're done, we can spam A to attempt to use Thunder, until we finally wake up. With our 6x speeds and speed EVs, we will absolutely outspeed Gyarados. With our 2x accuracies, we can be sure Thunder hits. With our 6x specials and maxed out special attack EVs, we can be sure it's a one-shot. Spamming A until we know that in the slowest case we have knocked out Gyarados, we can mash B out of the switch screen and we'll find ourselves up against Kingdra. We easily outspeed and one-shot the rest of Lance's Pokemon with Thunder, save the level 72 Dragonite. We can be guaranteed to knock him out with Explosion so long as we have 80 attack EVs, 6 X attacks set up, and a Silk Scarf. And that's the story of how we were clever with Lance. I am the most powerful Pokemon trainer in the world, the champion says. Fat chance. He's only the champion because he got to the league before me, and I only got here late because I cannot see or hear. The first 3 Pokemon in the champion's team are pretty easy because we designed our team in part around them. With speed and attack EVs, Articuno outspeeds and one-shots the lead Heracross at only level 73. The rival then sends in Tyranitar, for whom we picked Machamp. Machamp can certainly one-shot Tyranitar with a 4 times effective Brick Break at relatively low levels, but Tyranitar might outspeed Machamp. To ensure that a max roll crit on top of Sandstorm damage doesn't knock out Machamp, we need max defense EVs and at least level 77. This means gaining some random experience from knocking out hundreds of legendary Tangelas south of Pallet Town. The only other thing to worry about with Tyranitar is that he could paralyze Machamp, but that's easily handled by a Cherry Berry. Next up is Arcanine, who was part of the reason we picked out Slowbro. While he can outspeed, we are beyond bulky enough to take it. With max special attack EVs, a Sea Incense, and the help of Sandstorm damage, Arcanine is done for. The champ is quickly down 3-0, but now things are starting to pick up in terms of getting clever. The rival sends in Alakazam. Our solution is somewhat non-obvious. With 40 special defense EVs, level 100 Jolteon can just barely tank a max roll crit Psychic along with the Sandstorm damage. This gives us exactly one turn to set up. Alakazam has relatively high special defense. On the other hand, he has pathetic defense, so even if his first turn is used on Reflect, we would still be better off using a physical attack move. This is especially true if that move is Hyper Beam, which has massive power at the cost of a full turn after the one in which it is used. We have maximum attack EVs on Jolteon, so this would be a slam dunk. If we use turn 1 on an X accuracy, we can surely get off a Hyper Beam, knocking out Alakazam. Jolteon will not be at full health as it has taken at least some Sandstorm damage, and it may be at low enough health that one more Sandstorm can take it out. Even though the champion's next Pokemon is Blastoise, which Jolteon is the obvious counter to, we have no choice but to switch out. And who do we switch to but Gengar? Using a similar strategy to Bruno's Steelix, we use Gengar as a sort of burner Pokemon to create a turn in which to heal up Jolteon. Gengar may or may not die at the end of this turn. With a Lumberry ensuring we do not get frozen, we can sync the states by using Explosion. Well, not really. The issue is that Gengar might actually knock out Blastoise with Explosion if it decides to hit particularly hard that day, especially on top of Sandstorm damage. While we are certainly synced up in the sense that Gengar has fainted in every scenario, we are not synced up in the sense that the enemy may have either Blastoise or Exeggutor out in the next turn. When we send in Jolteon, we are blind as to which Pokemon we are up against. If we're up against Blastoise, we can be sure to take him out with one Thunderbolt. But we do not want to use Thunderbolt if Exeggutor is out because that might leave him paralyzed, a scenario we cannot account for. To solve this desynchronization, we need to consider the most minute features that will be different between the two cases. After using the full restore on Jolteon, we mash B. If Gengar is still alive, we are on Fight, and if he is not alive, then we're in the swap screen. A, then down twice, then A leaves the dead Gengar case unaffected, and has us using Explosion in the live Gengar case, with that splitting into two cases. Either Blastoise faints, and we have a Blastoise fainted text box, or Blastoise lives, and we have a Gengar fainted text box. 1B press brings both live Blastoise cases to the switch menu on Gengar, and brings us to the Gengar fainted text box in the dead Blastoise case. This is the only distinction we have between life and death, a single button press that makes the rest of this strategy possible. Down 5 times and A twice sends out Jolteon if Blastoise is alive and leaves us on Gengar in the switch screen if he is down. The case is split in 3 once again. In the live Blastoise case, Blastoise may die to Sandstorm here. We must track our button presses carefully. 2 A presses does nothing in the first dead Blastoise case where we are in the menu, advances text boxes in the case where Blastoise died to Sandstorm, and uses Thunderbolt in the case that Blastoise is still alive. Now we can be sure of it. Blastoise is dead. Mashing B, the case is collapsed back to 2. Jolteon is out against Exeggutor, or we are still on Gengar in the menu with Blastoise fainted. Down 5 times into 2 A presses swaps in Jolteon in the menu case and opens the Pokemon menu in the other case. Mashing B and pressing up once, we are finally in sync. Jolteon against Exeggutor in a duel to the death. Exeggutor can do a lot to us, and we can't guarantee a one-shot. We can't account for status conditions with berries because we needed the Silk Scarf on Jolteon, so we need a robust strategy that doesn't rely only on Jolteon. We use the first turn to revive Gengar, who will be our guaranteed win condition. We can't switch into him though, because he could just be statused or one-shot on the swap turn. If we want to send him out, Jolteon needs to faint so that we get the swap for free. The solution is to attempt to spam Shadow Ball with Jolteon. We have no idea how much damage is being done to the enemy. We may even be asleep the entire time and not doing any damage at all. We also both keep getting ground down by the Sandstorm, and the rival may even full restore if things get too rough. So this phase is incredibly volatile, a blind, deaf disaster with high levels of variability. We may knock out Executor before Jolteon faints just by mashing A, an incredibly unreliable but valid victory that enters us into the final cutscene without any need for our cool Gengar strategy. But in the likely case that Jolteon faints first, we're left mashing A on Jolteon in the swap screen. After enough time has passed mashing A so that Jolteon is guaranteed to have either won or been taken out by Sandstorm damage, we can send in Gengar. Gengar can be one-shot by Executor, so the AI will always choose to use the 100 accuracy Psychic or a full restore if in range. That gives Gengar at most 2 turns to live before its guaranteed demise. We outspeed, so for 2 turns we use Destiny Bond, which knocks out the enemy Pokemon if the user is knocked out in the same turn. By the end, we are guaranteed to have fallen, but we will take Executor with us in a reliable display of mutually assured destruction. In the only other parallel universe, we've already beaten the game, and we have now synced the 2 states in the most satisfactory way. Certain victory. The most powerful Pokemon trainer in the world. Fat chance. Our finale is a blind deaf masterpiece. We do not know which Pokemon deals the final blow. We do not know what level 5 of our 6 teammates are. We've made use of EV training, guaranteed capture mechanics, held items, and X items to an extreme extent, subverting all chances of randomness leading to our demise. So from here, where might we go? There are dozens of other Pokemon games to attempt blind and deaf, and at least 5 people tuning into these videos when they're released. To them, I'm very grateful. This has been a pleasure, especially collaborating with another blind and deaf man as passionate as myself. With the new strategies displayed here, these runs could be further optimized, and with new eyes on these games, many more runs can be possible in the future. But I haven't slept in months. Maybe you can suggest a new sort of suffering for me to endure after I awake. Good night.
Just waking up in the morning, gotta thank God. I don't know, but today seems kinda odd. No barking from the dog, no smoke. And mama cooked the breakfast with no fork. I got my grub on, but didn't dig out. Finally got a call from a girl I wanna dig out. Hooked it up for later as I hit the dope. Thinking, will I live another 24? I gotta go, cause I got me a drop top. And if I hit the switch...